Welcome to the show, Audrey.
Thanks for having me, Chrissy.
So now it's time to give some advice to parents that have a child with any condition, whether it be physical condition or a mental health condition. What advice would you give, Audrey?
Absolutely.
What can a parent do?
The first thing to do really is to get that diagnosis, because then you get that piece of paper, which means that you understand what's going on, and then you can also look at what you're entitled to get in terms of support for that child. That is hugely important, but unfortunately support varies from county to county. So it does mean when you get the diagnosis, it's often the work has just started at that point. Some counties are wonderful at supporting, others maybe you need to be a little bit more persistent. Collaborate with people, speak to the school, speak to anyone, any group that the child works with or integrates with, because they might have ideas or things that work with that child, and then by replicating that in the home, that can actually be a really comforting thing for the child, because they understand, oh yeah, at Guides I do this, or at Scouts we do that, in school we do this, and actually at home I do this too, and that can be very supportive. Don't be afraid of it, just find out more. Find out also, in terms of the child, their level of understanding of what they have. So in terms of diagnosis, that's where I mean don't be afraid. Speak to the child, get them to understand that it just makes them a little bit different. They have to do things in a different way. It doesn't make them weird or strange or anything like that.
Or inferior.
Or inferior, exactly. And the more normal we can make it, the more normalised we can make it, the more supportive it is for the child as well. And if that child can then talk to their friends about it and explain why they need to do things in a certain way, so much the better. Something we do need to be very aware of is that life, unfortunately, now is not set up to support diagnoses, in that it's a huge culture of comparison at the moment, social media. It's not the nicest place to be, and that does not help if your child has something like anxiety or depression, even ADHD, flicking through so many different posts, that can be overstimulating as well. Now we have a lot of project work, so parents are finding they're having to move from place to place. That doesn't help a child who is on the autistic spectrum or has Asperger's. That can be quite frightening for the child. So again, that's where collaboration can really help, because if the condition is being managed in a certain way with the school or with the childcare or whoever that child interacts with, then it's really important that we carry it on in the home as well. Other things to remember is that the child themselves should be allowed to be a child. And that's the one thing we sometimes forget, because especially when there's a lot of diagnoses, trips, you're always in the hospital, you're always doing all the things that the medical professionals tell us to do. What about going out to the park? What about playing?
That's so important, just a sense of normality, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's a chance for everyone to do something together as well. And that in itself can be a wonderful thing for the child, so they don't feel like I'm really strange or
it's not all about the diagnosis,
else.
It's about like...
Exactly. All of this is about empowering that child to work with whatever that condition is. It doesn't matter that people have conditions. That happens. That's part of life. Sadly, it means that child may have to work a little bit harder to manage that particular condition. But if they can own it, if they can understand it, and they can also help their own interaction with it, in other words, if they can tell other people, oh, I like this to happen in this way because, and they have that understanding, that can be so, so helpful as well. So in terms of the condition, don't be afraid of it, but also don't let it rule you. Allow that child to be a child, allow yourselves to be a family, have time for yourselves, have respite care too, because sometimes if the focus is all on that child, if there's other siblings, they might begin to feel a little bit left out too. If the focus is all on the child, it might also be you lose your own identity and start almost seeing yourself as not only mum, but mum of a child with this particular condition. And we've got to remember that if we're happy, then the likelihood is we'll create an environment where that child can be happy too. Definitely. So look after yourself as well.
Thank you, Audrey, my darling. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.